There are multiple types of volume licensing agreements. The most popular are Enterprise Agreement, Enterprise Subscription Agreement, MPSA, Microsoft Products and Services Agreement, Open Value Subscription, and the recently retired Open Licensing Program. From the services provider perspective, the first thing that you need to understand is that volume licenses are not allowed to be used on shared multi-tenanted public cloud hardware. However, there are a few exceptions. Certain licenses may be brought by the end clients to the multi-tenanted hardware following the so-called license mobility terms and conditions. When they have the so-called software assurance, there is an option for end clients to bring some of their volume licenses to multi-tenanted hardware. But there are strict rules around that, and there are strings attached to that as well. And there are some things you need to do as a provider for that to be possible. QMTH stands for Qualified Multi-Tenanted Hosting, authorized to host Windows 11, Windows 10, Windows 8, Windows XP, and Office 365 applications. Otherwise, none of these applications, neither Office 365 nor Windows 11, are allowed to be used on multi-tenanted hardware. If end clients decide to move their licenses under software assurance to your multi-tenanted hardware, they have to go through a so-called license verification process. They need to fill in license verification forms, and you're supposed to keep them, you're supposed to verify them as well. When their software assurance expires, the licenses must be taken off the public cloud. They may not be used any longer when say maintenance on those licenses expires. One of the most frequent questions that we get from providers: can we use our own volume licenses to serve multi-tenanted workloads? Yes, but there are very strict limitations around self-hosting. Only a few products may be used in such manner, and you must be a SaaS provider. You must have an application that your end clients interact with. On dedicated hardware, on private cloud, on colocation, there is no limit on usage of volume licenses, unless we're talking about large four providers like Google, Amazon, Alibaba, and Azure, but Azure is an exceptional situation. Azure also has its own exceptions from these rules. The governing documents where you may find all the licensing terms and conditions for volume licensing are the agreements themselves and the so-called Microsoft Product Terms. Microsoft Product Terms is the Bible, licensing Bible for all the licensing. Whatever you find online in forums, whatever you learn from these trainings, other trainings that we have on our YouTube channel or anywhere else, always verify that against the governing document for volume licensing, which is called Product Terms. For historical licenses, before 2015, the document that governed those licensing terms and conditions was called Product Use Rights. So if you need to research historical licensing before 2015, that is what you need to look for: product use rights, not product terms. The licensee, the party that gets the license, that is licensed to use it, is the end client, end customer, end user, not you. Even if they bring their licenses to your platform, to your data centers, they still hold the license. It's their license, they bring it to your estate. CSP, in many regards, is similar to volume licensing. However, because there are still differences, and some of those differences are fundamental, we decided in all our educational materials to keep CSP, or Microsoft Customer Agreement, MCA, separate from volume licenses. It's not allowed to be used on public cloud except for only two types of software: Windows 11 and Office 365 on QMTH providers. That is the only exception. That is the only case when CSP licenses or MCA licenses may be brought to shared hardware. It doesn't allow hosting. It doesn't allow shared access to the licenses because licenses belong to an end user. On dedicated hardware, there is no limit. Colocation, private cloud, by all means, you may use any of the CSP licenses as you want, because that is treated as dedicated hardware as the end client's hardware. As with volume licenses, the terms and conditions of MCA or CSP licenses are in product terms, and also in the Microsoft Customer Agreement, of course. The licensee is the end client, not you, not the provider. Even when you provide services through QMTH, you first sell licenses to your end users. and they then bring the licenses to your data centers. Although it may not look like that from the point of view of your process, that is how it looks legally.